Hey, it's Willie Crawford here, and I am coming to you live on this Tuesday, September 10th, 2019, with a Facebook Live. And today we're going to talk about writing a book. I want to give people a few minutes to join us, and so I'm just going to sit here for a while. Well, actually, I can start on time. It is 11 o'clock Eastern, which is the time I said I'd start, and I'm sure people will be chiming in soon. So let me uh, start out by saying that I have written several print books. I've actually written about 80 books altogether. And when most people hear that, it blows them out of the water. But I haven't published most of those in print. So I've written a lot of books that I've published only in ebook format or put them on Amazon, Kindle, or something like that. So I haven't published them all in print. The other thing is I've written or co-authored a number of books. And so my name's in the credits and all that, and my name is on the cover, front or back cover. And those are books that I've written, but when I talk about books I've written, I don't typically take credit for them. Um, I do sometimes, but today's discussion is on writing your own book, and um, I'm still waiting for people to join us. I'm sure they'll chime in momentarily. Um, and I'm doing that partly because I want to make sure that you can hear me, but maybe it's an inconvenient time for a lot of folks. We'll see. I think I'll go ahead and get started, and then when people start chiming in, uh, then I'll backtrack some. So let me begin by saying all the books I've written are nonfiction. So I'm not talking about writing a Harry Potter or something like that. I'm talking about writing how-to books, biographies, books that share things that you've done. To me, those are incredibly easy to write because it's easy for me to write, or anyone actually, to write about things that you actually know about. So I'm not talking writing fiction at all. So if you're interested in writing fiction, some of the things that I will discuss could apply to you, but most of them won't apply to you. And I'm going to touch on a point. I'm going to look at my notes, so you'll see me looking down a lot, even though my camera is right here. I'm going to be looking down a lot because I don't like depending totally on my memory. uh, so I want to start out by saying that writing a book is not as difficult as you think it is. I was at a family reunion beginning of July, and we had the people in the family who'd written books all sit at a table up front, and then we sold our books right there to our family members. But we also and we autographed them, some of them, and then we took questions from the audience about becoming an author, and the concerns expressed were lots of people had dreamed about writing a book, but most hadn't taken that leap, hadn't made that leap, and so they expressed regret that they hadn't done it. But a lot of them, the problem was perfectionism. They were worried about how they would be perceived by the world if their grammar wasn't perfect, if their spelling wasn't perfect, and all those things. My second book I wrote, I had an editor who checked it back about a dozen times. She'd read a passage in the book, and she'd email me and say, "What does this mean?" And I'd explain to her what it meant. And she'd say, "Well, why didn't you say that?" And I'd say, "Because that's not the way I talk." I said, "I write the same as I talk." And so she came back with, "But people are going to judge you by how you write." And I said, "I write like I talk." And we went back and forth, and she changed a few things in my book. That book, incidentally, is my biography, which is called Get Off the Porch. That's GIT, Get Off the Porch. And you can find that book on Amazon.com. Just go to Amazon and look up Get Off the Porch. And it's available in English and Spanish. in print and in ebook format. Okay, there you guys are. Let's see. Got Joel Orlando, got John Young, my friend Paul Elliott, Kim Rhodes, Vicki Jacobs Hunt, who is a classmate of mine, and John Young all joined us. So I thank you guys for joining us. When I was looking at topics that I was going to cover on Facebook Lives, I sort of committed to doing one every day, except for maybe Sundays, for 30 days in a row, because it's sort of an experiment. It's a commitment. It's a lot of things. Okay. And yesterday, I asked people, I said, so what would you like me to talk on? And somebody suggested, Joel, I think, suggested sharing with people how I came to write my book. And the book I'm most famous for is a cookbook. That was the first one I wrote, and that was the one that brought me to a lot of people's attention. But I've written, like I said, a ton of other books. Uh, I, I, um, I mentioned before we got started, I'm not talking about writing fiction. I write nonfiction. So some of the things I'll say to you, though, will apply to fiction too. And people think that writing a book is difficult, and therefore we tend to put people who've written a book on a pedestal. Uh, my friend Fred Gleek, whom I met back in 2002 at a seminar, he said, writing a book is like brushing your teeth. It's something that if you just get up and you do it every day, maybe set aside half an hour or an hour and just sit down and write. And if you're like me, you will have a quiet spot, maybe in your yard on a patio, or I have one room in my home that is my office. I'm actually in it now. And I told my wife, you can have all the rest of the house. I want this one room. This is my man cave. Leave it alone. And she did for the most part, except every now and then she insists upon coming in and cleaning. And then she moves everything around and I can't find anything. But this is my cave, and I've still got to get a banner to go behind me so that it looks more professional. But writing a book is just like brushing your teeth. It's just something that you do every day. Also, I think of it like it's no more difficult than writing a high school or a college term paper. Uh, the problem is the same problem that we often experienced when we wrote those high school or college term papers. That is, the teachers told us, weeks in advance, sometimes months in advance, okay, you're going to have a term paper due on this date. And we all procrastinated. We didn't start writing until I wrote college term papers the night before they were due. I didn't even start writing until they were due. And I got, really nice grades on those college term papers, but I put off until the last minute writing them. So, I'm going to assert that writing is no more difficult than writing a high school or college term paper. It's just sitting down and doing it. And you need to get rid of the perfectionism. So at first, just write. And don't worry about your grammar, your spelling, all that. You can go back and do your spell checks later. And I actually, even when I write like a post on Facebook or an article or something, I write it, I spell check it, but spell check it won't catch if you wrote thee when you meant they, or you when you meant your, or something like that. So I read it out loud, and if I fumble on any passage, I change that passage, or I double check things. And then after I've spell checked them, I then read it out loud. If you were around my house, when I'm proofreading something, you think I'm a little psycho because I read it out loud. And some people actually read backwards because you'll catch mistakes you make there. But it really is like writing a term paper, no more difficult than that. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that if you 100% don't feel comfortable in writing, no matter what I say, you can go out and have something ghostwritten. Some of the most famous authors in the world, and probably most of our politicians and people like that who have a book, they didn't write it themselves. They hired a ghostwriter to write it for them. Now, the danger there is they just wanted a credential, something to show. Look, I wrote my book. This is my biography. And a lot of them, they were like interviewed, and the interviewer then wrote the book for them. The problem with that is a lot of times you'll go on TV shows, on radio shows, on podcasts, or whatever, and the interviewer will ask you questions about things that you said in your book. Well, if it was ghostwritten, um, and you didn't even read what was written there, you're going to come across as a phony because you don't remember you don't know what's in your book. So it's okay to have something ghostwritten, with a number of caveats. I have an acquaintance who used to go around offering to ghostwrite stuff for people. And what he really did, and I disagree with this, was he'd write a book on a certain topic, and then he'd sell that book, the same manuscript, over and over and over again to different people. And all he'd do was change maybe the first few words and change the cover. And he'd say, here, now you have a book with your name on it. You're the author. You've got credibility. You've got podium power. People put you on a pedestal because you've written a book. Uh, and then he said, if you hand somebody your book and they start reading it, those aren't the people that you're trying to attract, because you don't want them to read your book. You just want them to say, wow, he wrote a book. He must be somebody. And so I totally disagree with that. Okay. I think that your book should be your story, your message to the world. It should be something that builds you up. But I don't think you should hesitate in writing one. And if you need to have it ghostwritten, there are people who can do that. Then you need to go back to it and check it very closely and make sure you know what's in it, and that you agree with what's in it. I mean, it's your book. Now, the reason that you want to write a book is it gives you instant credibility. And I mentioned credibility and podium power. I mentioned my friend Fred Leake. He talked about it as being a glorified business card. And my biography is a glorified business card. It I think I have a copy next to my desk. There it is. This is Get Off the Porch. And when I'm on an airplane or something and I'm sitting there with somebody, I'll probably have a few copies in my computer case. And it's natural to strike up a conversation with somebody and they say, so what do you do? Or you ask them and they'll tell you, and then maybe they'll ask you. You're trying to get them to ask you. And you say, I do this, I'm a consultant, I'm I don't know, a holistic healer or whatever. And they go, oh, really? Do you have a card? And you say, no, I don't have a card, but I do have my book. Would you like a copy? So it's a glorified business card. And they go, your book? See, the thing is, people, we put books on a pedestal. They're almost like sacred to us. We don't throw books away. You give somebody your business card, they take it and they go home, and they may put it in the back of their desk drawer. They may just toss it. But people don't throw books away, generally speaking. So this book cost me less than $1 a copy, okay? And it's a business card, and it's a credential. People go and they read this, and when they read it, it sells them on me. It sells them on my expertise, and I've gained a lot of clients from people who read this book, and because they read it, they felt, I know Willie. I like him. I trust him. I know what makes him tick. I know his weaknesses. And so you want to be careful. You want to share who you are, what you are, but you don't want to share things that are going to be like totally embarrassing. I mean, I spent 20 years in the military where we had this concept called need to know. And I had a top secret clearance with a bunch of other funky letters behind it, which meant I knew things that could bring down a government even. But just because somebody else had that clearance didn't mean they had a right or a need to know. So you didn't tell anybody, even if they had the same security clearance, certain things. You just said, well, they don't have a need to know. I did things that my bosses never knew about because they didn't have a need to know. Only the people I was working with had the need to know. And I think it's the same with things you put in a book or say in an interview or whatever. You let the world know who you are, but you don't embarrass yourself. So, think about that. And, you're trying to sell the world on you as an expert. Uh, let's talk about, see, some people think printing a book is expensive. You don't have to print a lot of copies of a book. You can go to what's called a print-on-demand publisher, and if you want to, just have them print up a few copies. You do want to be able to, have copies when you are doing an interview or you're on a TV station, maybe a cable TV show, or you take pictures for a magazine or whatever. You want to have copies, physical copies of the book, but you don't need a lot of them. In fact, you're probably better off like using Amazon's Create Space or whatever. They may have changed the name of it now, but they do print on demand. Not only do they do print on demand, they will print your book and ship it to your customer and send you your money, and they'll give you most of the money. So, you don't have to sink a lot of money into printing a book. Now, I'm talking about self-publishing here. Traditional publishing, what happens is the publishers, they read your book, the manuscript, and 1 out of 1,000 maybe is going to make it in their estimation. And so the others, they'll take a few, they'll reject the majority of them, but they won't publicize most of those books. It's up to the author to get out there and do book signings and things like that. They don't push your book. I self-publish, so it's my job to let the world know about my books, and I do. I'm doing that now. I showed you a copy. Now, one of the reasons that I think you should have a book is that not only does it give you instant credibility, but it gives you a line of products. It can give you a line of products. See, you can take one book that you've written and say it's on some topic that you're very passionate about, and you have a gift that you want to share with the world. You can take that book, the print book, and you can record it as an audio book and market it that way. You can make slides or whatever, or video yourself and turn it into a series of videos. You can do podcast interviews. You can take your book and make each chapter like a lesson, and all of a sudden you have a course you could sell over the internet, or you have something you could teach in a seminar. So you can take that one book, the content in that one book, and turn it into dozens of different products. A book like this, somebody will look at it and it's a paperback. They'll say, that's worth, I don't know, $10, $20. Actually, the value of the book is not dependent on the size of the book. It's dependent upon the information in the book and the value that your potential reader sees in having that information. So get over the idea that, okay, I can write a book and I can sell it for $5. That doesn't matter. What is the information in the book worth to somebody who reads it and uses what you're teaching them? And if it's worth a lot, then you need to figure out how to package your information in a format where people will pay for it. See, for a paperback book, they're only going to pay so much for it. You print it hardcover, it costs you a few dollars more. You've got 10 times the credibility, 10 times the credibility or more. If you take that book and you teach a workshop, all of a sudden you've taken the content from a $10 book and you can charge, $497 for your workshop or $1,000 for your workshop, even as long as people are getting value and you're changing lives and you're making a real difference to people, they'll be happy that they purchased your book, So when I talk writing a book, I'm talking about getting out there, getting your message to the world, okay? I'm glancing at my notes because I want to throw some things at you. One of those is when you push your book out on like Amazon, they'll sell your book. They'll make a lot of sales of your book, and that's a good thing. Amazon's like one of the world's largest search engines. The difference between Amazon and most other search engines is when somebody goes to Google and Google something, they're usually looking for free information. They're not looking to buy something. They're looking for free information. When somebody goes to Amazon, they're looking for something to buy. So Amazon is pulling in customers. And if you put your book on Amazon and use the proper title and the proper description and all those things, people will find your book and they will buy it. They're looking to buy when they go to Amazon. So, don't overlook that. But Amazon doesn't give you the name and the email address and all that of your customers because Amazon is shipping the order directly to your customers. So whenever you create a product, whether it's a book that you're going to sell on Amazon.com or an ebook or a lot of other product formats, you can push a set of slides out through some slide sharing site or whatever. You could give those away uh, with no obligation if you want to. But what you need to do when you do something like that is you put in it what we call bounce back. In this book, I could invite you to visit my website and download some bonus. Okay. I've just sold a book through Amazon, gotten in front of millions of people looking to buy a book on my topic. And then in the book, I said to claim a special bonus, a CD, a DVD, in the case of a cookbook, maybe a bonus collection of desserts or something like that. You give them a web page to go to where they fill in a form. Okay. At that point, your book has become a source of leads. You've gotten them to fill in the form, you've added them to your autoresponder sequence, maybe you've gotten maybe their physical mailing address if you want to follow up with them via physical mail, which I do some of, but you've captured that person's information, whereas you wouldn't otherwise catch it. We call that bounce back, something that drives them to your website and to your funnel where you can then follow up with them. They read your book and it delivers value into their lives if it, makes a difference, makes a real difference. And that's critical, there's a lot of books, a lot of information products out there that don't improve people's lives. The reason that I want you to write a book is all of us have in us something that is a message that we want to get out to the world. We need to get out to the world. There's a saying, don't die with music still inside you that meant to be played. Get out there and let the world know who you are and what you are. And most of us are about making a difference in the world. Once we get beyond, um, meeting our basic needs, then you think, why am I here? What's my legacy going to be? What difference am I making in the world? And I've been in business on the internet for 23 years, and in those 23 years, I've watched people who didn't last much beyond 3 or 4 years. They burned out because they were just trying to figure out how can I make a quick buck, basically. You have to, at some point, and something I'm doing, something a lot of my friends are doing, they're going, what difference am I really making in the world? And when you find that difference, then you can have a lot more passion. You can want to get your message out there, whether that message is a spiritual message, whether it's a political message, whether it's something to do with helping to cure disease or helping children, whatever. I actually mentioned in a few places I have a passion for single moms, and I mentioned on a post one of the people that'll be at an event that I'll be at the end of the month who's a single mom. Actually, her son was born in South Central LA, and she was living in the projects. And before her son was born, her husband was arrested, and now her son's like in his 20s, and his dad is in prison. So she's a single mom. She raised that child by herself. But my passion and the reason I resonate with her is because she said, I'm not going to let my son be drawn into the gang violence and all that stuff. She says, not on my watch. And so she is a motivational speaker, and she's nominated for an award of the thing I'll be at in 2 weeks. And I hope she wins. But her message, her passion, what put her out there in front of the world, and she's written books now. An amazing thing about the fact she's written books is she's dyslexic. And she jokes and says, if I don't run my book through an editor, I'll start a sentence with a period. And she faced challenges in life. And so that's why she's inspirational to me too. She did her best grade in school was a C plus, and she was in a speech class or whatever, and the teacher said, you're so terrible. He said, you should never give a speech again. Don't get anything that requires you to speak. Another teacher said, don't write. And so she writes and she speaks. But what drives her purpose? So she's making millions of dollars now, and she's giving a lot to charities and things like that. But what drives her is her mission is to make a difference, a real difference in people's lives. And once you find that passion, that driving force, then it no longer becomes a chore. It becomes a joy because you feel like you're living your purpose. And, most of us, we need to feel we're living our purpose. It's not about getting up and going to work at a job you hate, maybe commuting for an hour one way, and then spending all day with coworkers you don't like and a boss you don't like, and, just waiting for a break so you can get away from these people, and then it's a long ride back home and traffic jams and all that stuff. It's not about that. So I want you to consider making a commitment to yourself today, to start writing that book. And there are a lot of people that I've talked to at seminars and conferences who said, oh yeah, I'm writing a book. And they said, yeah, I started 3 years ago or 5 years ago. It's like, what? I wrote this book in 3 months. 3 months. And I had a mentor who he invited me to a workshop he was hosting. And at the workshop, he said, I'm looking for just a few people. I want to step through the process of writing a book. He said, I want you to go from concept to a physical book in 3 months at the most. And nobody raised their hand to volunteer. So I raised my hand, and that triggered a bunch of other people doing the same thing. I wrote the book in a month. And it took 2 months to get it through the editor and all the back and forth, and then to get it to a printer, and to finally, inside of 3 months, I had the physical book in my hand. So it's not that difficult. It's just a matter of committing to it and then starting to do it. So I want you to make that commitment to yourself. If you feel that you have a message that you want to get out to the world, and do that. Now, when I first thought about doing this Facebook Live, I said, wow, I could do a workshop on how to write and publish your own book, and I could charge people to attend my workshop. I could do it for X number of weeks and cover all the little intricacies of writing your own book. And then I thought, no, I know too many experts out there who teach that and do that for a living. So what I want you to do is, if you feel the need for someone to coach you through the process, and they'll not only teach you, but walk you through writing a book, doing your research, first of all, to confirm that the world wants what you have, what you think you want to write about, that the world's going to be willing to pay for that, because you want to make money off your project too. Whether even if you want to just give the money away after you make it, the world runs on money. So you still want to make money, and then you can give it to your church, you can give it to some charity, you can give it to cancer research or the homeless, or whatever you want to give it to, but you still want to make money from it. So you need to confirm that the world wants what it is that you're going to offer to them. So you need to do your research first, and then you need a coach probably, or a mentor that will step you through the process. Again, I've done it so many times that I could step you through the process, but what I want you to do is, if you feel the need for a coach or a mentor, you can reach out to me. Just send me a message over Facebook Messenger, or email me. One of my email addresses is willie.crawford. That's Willie with a period, Crawford @gmail.com. Gmail is very good at filtering spam. That's why I use Gmail instead of my own domain name. So willie.crawford @gmail.com. I'll tell me what it is that you want to write your book on, or think you want to write your book on, and I'll put you in touch with one of 3 or 4 people who coach people through writing and getting a successful book out into the world. They do this day in and day out. That's what they do for a full-time living. So I can put you in touch with those people rather than me try to do that. And let me glance at my notes again, because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, what did I do? The having the book uh, makes you semi-famous, and then you can leverage that book to get things like speaking engagements and clients who seek you out. You know, if you are a consultant or an expert on any topic, you have two ways of getting business. One is to go out and chase after clients and convince them, try to convince them that you're the right person to help them to achieve whatever it is they want in life. The other way to do it is to be out there, visible, and have it so obvious that you are the person that they need to work with, that they come to you. It's much easier when you're the pursued rather than the pursuer. It's like you think about a guy that is infatuated with a pretty girl, uh, and he's chasing after her all the time. He's always just trying to get her to go out with him. To an extent, he seems sort of freaky. You know, it's like if he pushes too hard, he's going to scare her off. If he pretends he's not really interested in her, uh, it's been shown over and over again that she'll think, well, you know, why isn't he chasing after me? And she will become the pursuer a lot of times, not always. And this is just an example, and this works in sales too. If you try too hard to chase after a customer, you scare the customer off. If you show that what you have is a solution to their problem, uh, you become the pursued. They want what you have. People like buying things. People don't like being sold things. And so you want to put it out there. You want to get it noticed, but you don't want to chase people because that will scare them off. They want to make the decision on their own that what you have is what they need. So with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and wrap it up. I did want to end with a commercial because I mentioned I'm going to be in New York City uh, with a lot of celebrities, quasi celebrities, and celebrities. I'll be on stage with Martha Stewart, for example, whom I'm sure a lot of you have seen on television, on like cooking shows and things. Michael Gerber, who's author of The E-Myth. Uh, Dan Kennedy, who's one of my heroes. He, my time management techniques are all from his teachings, you know. Uh, and now Dan is supposed to be giving a couple of presentations at this event, but Dan was in hospice 10 days ago. And the last I heard, he's still in hospice, but he's doing much, much better. Uh, there are people who, family members who visit him all the time, and one of his former business partners uh, visit him all the time, and they read notes to him from people, fans, and he's the last I heard, which was earlier in the week, he was sitting up and joking with people. And I tune into this one group on Facebook that's all fans of Dan Kennedy. So I'm hoping he will be at this event. But if he's not, I'll be there, and I want you to come join me. That's why I gave this link here. So two things for you to do. One is, if at all possible, join me in New York City at Carnegie Hall on the 21st through the 26th, where I'll be given a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is the biggest accomplishment in my career. And it's something where I'll have not only a book, but a trophy and pictures of me on the red carpet with celebrities, a credential. But I'd like for you to be there because I'd like to take pictures with you, shoot some videos and things like that with you. And we can talk after hours. During the day on the 25th, 26th, and 27th, 26th, 27th, 28th, my day is scheduled. There's a group breakfast and a group lunch that I'm expected to be at as one of the DVs, honorees, whatever you want to call me. And then after hours, most nights, most evenings, my time is free. And that's when I want to schedule times to meet up with different people. I want to do that in advance, though, because I like to flow out my schedule. And we can sit and talk about whatever. If you want to bring a camera, or I'll have mine too. We can record something like an interview, like a podcast, whatever. Either you interviewing me or me interviewing you. You know, if you've got a message you want to get out to the world, I can help you to get that message out to the world. I can start to build your platform. So do check out that link I gave you. If you scroll down to the bottom third of the page, you'll see my ugly mug there. What is not fully explained on the page is it's not free to get into the event. There's an admission cost, but the admission cost, if you go to the link I just gave you, is a third of what the general public will pay. I was asked if I could be honored because of my 23 years in business online, and I said, yeah, I can do that. And the event host said, well, um, what kind of you're a person with a big audience, you're a salesperson, what kind of a commission do you want? And I said, I want to be able to make it affordable for my people. So uh, I don't want any commission on the general admission costs. I said, just let them in at a discount price. And after some haggling, I whittled the price down to a third of the general admission price. So, it's a good investment. Okay. So I want you to check it out. If you have any questions, contact me. Again, my main message though was you need to write a book. You need to get your message out to the world. And you need to not be afraid to start. You need to not worry so much about the world judging you. Yeah, people judge each other. So what? Uh, you know, I run in circles where we have expressions like, what other people think of me is none of my business, or what people say behind my back, I don't care about because they're where they need to be. They're behind my back. Uh, and to an extent, you know, I let things roll off of my back. I don't worry about that. I don't get into all the drama and all those things, but I don't worry so much about what the world thinks about me. And you don't need to either, for a number of reasons. One is most people, you worry about what people think about how you look. And if you're in a room with a bunch of people, most of those people aren't worried so much about how you look as they are worried about how you think they look. That we're self-centered, so we're focused on ourselves, and that's true whether it's you putting your book out there, you getting on video, you getting on stage. Put yourself out there in front of the world. Don't be afraid to do that. Let the world know who you are and that you have something to offer. And with that, I am going to ask you to, if you found value in this, even though I ran 37 minutes, please share this on your timeline or in your group or whatever, on social media. If you found value, and if you didn't find value, then of course you shouldn't share it. And with that, I do have another one of these planned for tomorrow at the same time at 11 o'clock Eastern. And I'm not going to tell you what the topic will be, but I'll make it something that will deliver value into your lives, hopefully. And with that, let's wrap it up. Thank you guys for joining me. I see Steve joined me and Paul Acorn joined me. Max Cantor joined us. So, and I see a lot of people who, I see the thumbs up or whatever coming in across the screen. So I know a lot of people joined who didn't type anything into the chat window. Thank you guys. I'll see you later.